battery died, so I don't know how good this looks. You know what I'm saying? Hello everybody, it's Annabelle from Reading Geek, and today I will be giving you some Latinx book recommendations for Latinx Heritage Month, which starts September 15th, maybe the same day this is going up, and goes all the way to October 15th. Of course, that does not mean that you should only be reading these kinds of books during this month. We should celebrate Latinx heritage all year long, or really just like reading books by Latinx authors, like the same way you be picking up a Sarah J Maas or a Stephen King or another white author's books. Just freaking buy books by Latinx authors. Anywho, let me share with y'all my recommendations. Let's start off with something a little dark. It's actually a book I read in August. As you know, I did not do a wrap up, nor do I plan on it. Anyway, I want to start off with something a little dark and we can move it on up. Quite a few of these have some dark aspects to it, but this one's the worst one. And that is Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Basterica. This was originally published in Argentina and in Spanish, and the English translation just came out August 4th, I believe. And I want to say I really enjoyed this book. It was very intriguing and compelling, and I couldn't help but finish it in like a few days. Even though it's short, I'm like a slow reader to begin with, but this may have taken me out of a reading slump. But before that, I just want to say, don't read this if you have a weak stomach, if you are faint of hearted. Let's talk about why. This book takes place in a future where cannibalism is illegal. It is government sanctioned to eat other humans, except for they're not called humans anymore. They're called special meat. After animal product becomes toxic, animals in general become toxic and poisonous to humans, the superpowers of the world start something called the transition. And in this transition, they start breeding humans for consumption. And these humans that are no longer called humans, but special meat or head, are processed in basically meat processing plants. And it follows Marcos, who is the manager of one of these meat processing plants. So he, as part of his job, has to sort of go through all these different kind of businesses that deal with human meat. So we kind of see the horrors that go on in all of those different situations. It gives us like a walkthrough of everything, but also we just see what this kind of society does to someone like Marcos, who doesn't believe in what's going on exactly, but also just, it's not like he's fighting against it, you know what I'm saying? He's just living in this world. And then the people that are all for it and are just kind of like blind to the fact that they are doing absolutely horrific things to other people in order to preserve themselves. So basically this is like a dark horror satire, like a satirical look at society as it is now and all the shitty things humans will do to other humans in order for self-preservation. And yeah, this is very graphic in its killing of humans, eating humans. Everything is just, so if you're like a curious cat like myself, totally pick it up if you like to read something like this. Let me tell you that the fucking ending of this book, I lost my breath. I got so yeah, I'm not gonna talk about it because it's the ending. I don't really want to but if you're somebody that can take something like this, go ahead, pick it up. I do not recommend it to people that don't think they can. So yeah, this is like a weird book. It's not like I highly recommend it, but like if you want to try and you want to go there, go ahead. No one's stopping you. Go there. The next book is The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and this is a historical fantasy romance set in a fantastical world inspired by Paris in the Belle Epoque. So it follows Nina Antonina, a young girl from the countryside who comes into the big city of Loisel to live with her cousin, and his ice queen of a wife, Valerie, in order to start her first grand season, in which she is to go to all these magnificent balls and kind of try to find herself a husband, if you will, except that in this high society, everybody looks down on her because she is this country girl. She has these telekinetic abilities that she cannot control, so everybody is gossiping and she's really struggling. And Valerie, her cousin's wife, is given the job of preparing her for this, making her palatable to everybody else. She's struggling with fitting in this new society, and then she meets Hector, who is this telekinetic performer, and he sees her telekinetic abilities as a gift rather than a nuisance, and she starts falling for him. But is Hector falling for her? There is a deception going on. There are secrets Hector is holding from her, and honestly, this is just such a fun read, and I love the characters. Great character development here, great villains. Valerie, I love to hate her. I think she's like my favorite villain, Valerie, the Ice Queen. Absolutely beautiful writing, beautiful writing. Like, Silvia Moreno Garcia has a way with words. So like lyrical and just something that sucks you in. It's a slow burn, I'm gonna tell you right now, but like the writing and the characters make it all worth it. So definitely check out The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. The next book is Dominicana by Angie Cruz. Highly recommend this one. It is an immigrant story. It follows a young, I believe she's 15 years old, Ana Cancion, who is forced into a marriage with a man twice her age in order for the betterment of her life and her family's life. She marries this man in order to be able to go to the United States with the hope that they can then call for the rest of her family. So she moves into 1960s New York City by herself as a 15-year-old with a man twice her age who, trigger warning, is abusive. But this book is just so compelling and impactful, and we see New York City through the eyes of this young immigrant girl that's never experienced any of this. It is happening during post the Trujillo reign, so Dominican Republic is dealing with that aftermath, and her husband Juan ends up having to go back to the Dominican Republic, leaving leaving Ana with his younger brother, who is more of a light-hearted, fun, loving kind of guy, and she really enjoys being with him rather than being in the presence of her own husband. We don't like Juan here. And when Juan is off in the Dominican Republic, she's finally able to explore the city, learn how to speak English, go out to the nightclubs, things she was really not able to do when Juan was in the city. And you just kind of see her go through all these trials, also grow, love life. And Ana is such a relatable character, and she feels so real, and I absolutely love her, and I'm rooting for her throughout the whole story. I highly recommend this book if you want to read a coming-of-age immigrant story that is really gonna take you there emotionally and learn something, y'all. The next book is one I actually read in July, and it is a YA fantasy by an Argentina author, Lovisona by Romina Garber. First of all, this cover, I love it. I love it so much. If you see the blurb here, or whatever this is called, and I was undocumented, unprotected, and unafraid, it follows young Manu, who is an undocumented girl in Miami, and her mother have turned up in Miami after running away from her father's, I guess, like crime family. So they're both hiding from ICE and from this criminal past. So she's lived this extremely small existence in this tiny apartment. On top of that, she has these very strange luminescent eyes that would call attention to her. So she's always wearing glasses, like sunglasses, and just like, it's difficult for her to be out and about and not seen. But after her mother is detained by ICE and her like sort of surrogate grandmother ends up in the hospital, Manu has absolutely nothing to lose, so she starts following clues to her past, to her father's past, and ends up in this magical world in which there are werewolves and witches, brujas and lovisones, and it is sort of like a magical school within the forest. I don't want to like talk too much about it, but that was the most exciting thing about it for me. The setting for the magical world, the magical school, it really took me back to Miami field trips, back when we went on field trips. If y'all don't know, I'm originally from Miami, Florida. I moved up here when I was 14. This isn't about you, Annabelle, but I really like that. Would I ever go back to Florida? Hell no, but it was part of my childhood. And we have like elemental magic. We have, of course, you know, that YA romance that I'm not honestly mad at. I feel like a lot of people felt like it was insta-lovey, but I feel like I'm no longer a teenager, but I feel like this is how, even as a teenager, I didn't act like a little hormonal carefulling. Manu ends up in this magical world to find out that she is the first Lovisona female werewolf. So this book touches upon a lot of social commentary. If you're into that, it's good. It touches upon sexism and like otherness as a whole. But anyway, this is the first book, and I believe a trilogy, I don't know, but that is Lovisona by Romina Garber. Y'all, I think I'm doing a great job in selling these books. So what do you guys think? Next one is another Silvia Moreno Garcia pick. I think this one may be my favorite. I don't know. It's between The Beautiful Ones and Gods of Jade and Shadow. This is a historical fantasy adventure that draws from Mayan folklore very heavily. Like, reading this book, I did not realize that there was a glossary in the back, because listen, Silvia, she be taking her notes, she be doing her research. And like, I remember when I was reading this book, I would keep going on Google to search certain terms when there was a glossary in the back. But let me tell you what it's about. So it follows Cassiope Atun, who is this young Mexican girl in 1920s, I believe, Mexico. And her mother basically moved back into the family estate after her father passes away, a man that her mother's family didn't want her to marry because he was darker skinned. So this deals with colorism a lot in the beginning, more so. But Cassiope Atun, obviously taking after her father, is darker than the rest of her family, and they basically treat her as a live-in maid in the house. She's not happy in this home. La tratan como una sirvienta, like it's a freaking telenovela. You know what I'm talking about? How telenovelas, all the protagonists are white. You only see somebody brown if they're like the housemaid, and that's the gospel truth. Dun, 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 dun. Basically, she works for her own family, living this absolutely miserable life, just working all day for these bitches. Like, I need to stop cursing. But one day she finds this mysterious box that's like rumbling, I believe, and she has the key to the box. She opens it, and it just so happens to be the bones of the god of the underworld, Hunkame, right? I haven't read this in a while. His name's Hunkame. But one day when everybody's out on like a family excursion, she decides to stay home, and she's like cleaning her granddad's bedroom or something, and she finds this box, and there's something weird drawing her to the box. So she opens the box, and it just so happens to be the bones of the god of the underworld, Hunkame. And she like cuts her hand or something on it, and there's like a blood bond that occurs from it, and he's revived. And so in order for him to fully revive and become his most powerful original self before his brother killed him and locked him in a box, well, not entirely killed, he has to go on an adventure and visit these different beings to kind of regain relics that belong to him that will then make him a full god. Cassiope Atun has to follow him on the journey because he's drawing his like lifehood from her lifehood, and the longer the journey takes, the more human he becomes. And oh my god, I love every single moment he just starts acting a little more human. I'm like talking about this book and I love it so much. There's like a slow burn romance. There's absolutely beautiful writing, just like so beautiful. The setting, the just like character descriptions. And oh my god, every time they meet a new person, they meet like spirits, they meet demons, they meet, the way they describe them is just like so impeccable, like so perfect. I have one qualm about this book. I remember that she uses the word tidbits and I just hate that word. I hate the word tidbits. But oh my god, if you haven't read Gods of Jade and Shadow, please read it. It's so amazing. Every now and then I go back to my flags and I like read one little tab and I'm like, I forgot how beautifully written this is. But I love it. The next book that I will be sharing with y'all, recommending to y'all, is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. It is a novel written in verse, a YA novel written in verse. It follows two young Dominican girls, one living in New York City and one living in the Dominican Republic, whose father passes away in a plane crash on his way to the DR. These two girls are sisters and they do not know about each other, but after their father's death they have to deal with all of these truths that are being unveiled and the changes that are going to come with his death and dealing with his grief on top of that, and all of these secrets coming to light. And it deals with sexism and a lot of other issues as well. And I feel like she depicted grief so, Elizabeth Acevedo depicted grief so well, because my ass was bawling overnight. I had to read this overnight because I didn't want to like prolong. It is so beautifully written, let me tell you. Like there were moments where I like held my breath and gasped. Like she is so good with her poetry and her words, and I'm like, I'm not clearly, like I don't have the words to describe how good Elizabeth Acevedo is. I also recommend The Poet X. Highly recommend that one. I checked it out of the library, so I don't have it, but I really felt seen in that for the first time in forever, reading that book. And I can't tell you much, I don't remember, but just pick up Elizabeth Acevedo's work. Definitely pick up Clap When You Land if you haven't. And it's also a very quick read if you guys are trying to do a readathon or something. It's written in verse. It's super easy and quick to read. The next book is yet another Silvia Moreno Garcia book. Hey, you know what also takes place within Latinx Heritage Month? October. Spooktober. Mexican Gothic is a Gothic horror set in Mexico. Let's talk about this. Yet another kind of story coming from the wonderful Silvia Moreno Garcia. What? She gave us fantasy Mayan folklore, she gave us telekinetic power romances, and now she's giving us a horror novel. What? She's doing that too? She mad versatile or whatever. But like, yeah, she's versatile. This book follows Noemi Taboada. I need to read it. Taboada. Mexican Gothic follows Noemi Taboada. Mexican Gothic follows Noemi Taboada, a young socialite in 1950s Mexico who receives a distressing letter from her cousin Catalina stating that her husband is trying to kill her. Come and save me. So Noemi's dad is just like, go check on your cousin because I want to make sure this is serious before we jump the gun. You know what I'm saying? First of all, I don't know why you sending her over there by herself. Whatever, you know, I don't know. It just feels weird for the time, but you know what? Noemi, she's an independent woman. She's a boss bitch. So she arrives at High Place, this massive creepy mansion on a hill. It's super foggy, it's super creepy, giving you those Gothic vibes, and everybody living in this house is just also very creepy, except for our lovely Frances, who's just really shy and awkward and is the only friend that Noemi ends up having here. Catalina's acting weird. Everyone else seems to be standoffish. They're clearly holding something from Noemi, and slowly Noemi starts to feel like she's losing her mind herself. She's starting to have creepy, bloody, gory nightmares, and slowly things start being unraveled. I mean, she starts unraveling. The secrets of High Place start unraveling, but also things start being revealed. This is definitely a slow burn. It's very slow and suspenseful in the beginning, and then the ending starts like going crazy, like an avalanche. It's crazy. I totally recommend it. So if you want something a little creepy for the Spooktober / Latinx Heritage Month, I recommend Mexican Gothic. It also touches upon some important issues: colonialism, colorism, eugenics, sexism, the nines. The last book that I will be sharing with you all today is Cantoras by Carolina de Robertis. It is a historical fiction following 5 women in 1977 Uruguay during El Proceso, which was a dictatorship happening in Uruguay. And it follows these 5 queer women, aka cantoras. Cantoras was a word that they used to call each other because they didn't really have a word for women who love women. And I absolutely love this book. You know, a book that you just pick up and immediately within like the first page you know you're going to love it, because Carolina de Robertis, her writing is so beautiful, so gorgeous. I was just like, I love that lyrical, beautiful prose, and she really has it in this one. And basically, let me tell you what it's about before I keep gushing. It follows these 5 women in 1977 Uruguay who find this quiet fishing village in the middle of nowhere called Cabo Polonio, in which they sort of find solace and they find sanctuary in Cabo Polonio from the constricting and very heavy claustrophobic life that they have in Montevideo, where the military has eyes everywhere, where you can't trust your own neighbors because they can say that you were showing communist views. Just like living wasn't possible in Montevideo during this time, and in Uruguay as a whole during this time. But yes, they find this place and they're allowed to be free and allowed to be themselves. And I just think that Carolina de Robertis writes just like wonderful, wonderful characters. I loved seeing their friendships. I loved seeing them fight. Like when these girls were doing the most, or you know what I'm saying, like I was honestly getting mad at them as well. Like they felt so real. So I just really love that about it. It's sort of like that multi-generational, but not really. It does span like 20 years, I believe. So we see them sort of like grow up. We see them go through El Proceso, go through the dictatorship, see how it changes them, see what happens when it ends. It's just a really nice, slow burn, character-driven historical novel, and I totally recommend it for those of you that love that kind of stuff, that beautiful writing, that slow burn. Also queer rep. Well everyone, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Did you find a Latinx heritage book that you might want to read during Latinx Heritage Month? Be sure to let me know down below if any of these books tickled your fancy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Or any time of the year, honestly. I mean, like, you don't have to just read them during this one month of the year. You can read them in January, in February, March, April, whenever. It don't matter.